course, you have a lot of success with Wreckin Cru, but then of course you leave.
Yeah.
So, and then you start doing all these other amazing things. But how and what was the day or the decision, or what made you actually really leave and then want to get out of the game?
Yeah. So I actually never left the game. I took, a um, sort of an inventory
Mm,
of how I could maximize everything that I was doing. But to answer the question, how and why did I leave? So to be clear, and again, it's like that the three blind mice touching different parts of an elephant when you talk about stuff like this, right? So, one mouse is touching the trunk, another mouse is touching, the belly, and the other one's, touching the leg, and you're gonna get a different perspective. And that's cool. However, this is my perspective. And again, people listen, they're entitled to their opinions, but not about me, but not their own facts about me, right? So, um, at the height of Wreckin' Crew, we had dropped the album Lovers. We had started touring a lot more and doing a lot more stuff, not just in California, but out in other places as well. We were one of the few groups at that time, rap groups anyway, performing with R&B acts. And so the traction was really picking up. The steam was really picking up. I mean, I'm kicking it with Stevie Wonder and people like that. So Barry White. So that's a whole different class of people you with, right? So that's how you kind of know, oh, okay. So these doors are opening. However, with that being said, that
mm,
also attracts certain elements and people to you who may not have your best interest at heart. So that's one piece of it. The other piece is, and I'll be completely honest, and like I say to this day, these are my brothers. I'll go to the wall for these dudes, Dre, Yella, Lonzo. Lonzo and I even performed together today. Um, there started to be a sense of I would say there was a lack of humility growing within the people. And again, you're starting to get all this adulation and attract people to you that it wasn't happening before. So that plays on a person's mind and ego and psyche and all of that kind of stuff. And so if you're not used to that, then you can get caught up in that. You can go Hollywood, so to speak, right? So that was another component. But most importantly, because we can get through all of that, most importantly, because I'm a businessman, it was about the shared profits and the shared responsibility and the shared ownership that had been promised. That was a verbal commitment, and the bottom line was that commitment wasn't upheld. So when we met on that and we had the discussions about that piece of it, it became the quote was, "This is my dream. Y'all just in it." Now, before even that stuff, there were improprieties going on in terms of record sales versus what we were actually receiving as artists. So I was advocating for myself, for Dre, and for Yella to make sure that we were compensated fairly because quite frankly, I was one of the ones actually reading the weekly reports, reading the sales reports, and trying to understand all of that and make sure that everything lined up. Come to find out, obviously later on when lawsuits came down and all this kind of stuff, not only was it not lining up, but other people were lining their pockets. And one of those folks, of course, was Macola Records, and Macola was shipping extra items across seas on, I don't know, a cruise ship or something like that, and not informing us of that happening. So we were being ripped off by a few pieces, by a few things. And then, of course, Lonzo didn't have infinite wisdom about the record industry. So, in his ignorance at the time, there was mismanagement. All of that added up to me, Cli-N-Tel, going, hey, you know what? Um, I got school happening. I have, you know, other pieces happening. Um, we ain't really making no money, but you know, being famous and broke is not a that's not a good look. Um, and we all quit. Me, Yella, and Dre all left, and we agreed we were going to reformulate Wreckin' Cru in in another way. But Lonzo ended up sort of catching up to them and convincing them eventually to come back. And I did go back, and we had one more meeting because again, CBS came knocking on our door and wanted to sign us. But my thing was, and maybe it was intelligence or maybe it was heightened stupidity. But my thing was, you know what? That's cool, but these numbers, I'm looking at the contract, and these numbers aren't really panning out and adding up. So I would rather continue down a road for myself and making sure that I had a solid foundation versus grabbing, this little piece right here and maybe not ever seeing anything else again. So I was educating myself on the business, and the contract was honestly it was trash. I mean, it was like a small amount of money, but then you like basically signing your whole life away. And of course, Dre and Yella at the time they jumped at it. Yeah, what dollar signs on that? A few zeros? Yeah, let's do that. And I'm like, nah, but these clauses here and ownership and publishing and something's not adding up. So anyway, long story short of it, man, is um, there were a few factors involved in that. And again, like I said, wasn't mad at anybody. Dre and Yella, like I said, to this day, still my dudes. And I didn't take it personal. It was business. And that's what informed my decision. It was a practical business decision to move away from that.
So how do you, since most people have a hard time with this, how did you find you were able to separate business versus personal?
It was more for me about, I think, the personality of the people and the person that I am, because I ended up, suing Lonzo and getting all of my money, that was awarded to me, and then I also ended up getting out of that studio time. And it was no hard feelings. I mean, me and Lonzo, we sat down, man. We had a long talk about the whole thing. He explained his piece of it, more so. He admitted some things that, yeah, he some decisions that he made were not always correct, and we've been long moved past that. I mean, like I said, to this day we perform together now, we go tour together, we kick it together, just talk to him almost every other day. But I think for most people, they tend to think that if it's about money, then they take it personal to the point where folks want to go for blows or start touching on folks. But it was never that, for us. And you know what the weird thing about us in Wrecking Crew, a lot of times, man, we would go into the studio and not really have to say very much to each other. We just kind of always knew what we wanted to do. There was not a whole lot of dialogue with Dre and Yella in terms of like when we created songs. We just had each other's sort of personalities down so well that we just kind of we worked together well, and that was the piece in it that was so unique, and that chemistry was there. It could be because when you look at our backgrounds, we have some very similar upbringings. It could be the fact that we sort of geographically grew up basically in the same area. It could have been that we had the same taste in music. Whatever it was, there was synergy there, and there was sort of a mutual respect that we still have to this day for each other. But long story short of it, man, is it's just an informed way of looking at things.
Gotcha. And speaking of informed, you have continued. Excuse me. Speaking of being informed, you've continued in the music industry. I actually met you through Krista Glove Taylor at one of his studio sessions.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you have your book
Yep.
that everybody should pick up if they haven't already. But then also, you're doing a lot of teaching. So, at LA Film School and elsewhere. So, how did you navigate the next stages of your career that have taken you all the way to now becoming a teacher?
Yeah, man, that's crazy because I kind of always have been a teacher, even having younger brothers and sisters, being big bro, being the oldest brother. I would help them a lot, but even some of those cats who were roadies in our crew with Wreckin Cru, some of those dudes, yeah, they gangbang. And a lot of times they will go, yo, man, I want to get this job, but I don't know how to fill out an application. I can't read. So I would pull dudes in, man, and we'd have reading circles, and I would teach them how to read. Start at the very remedial, first, second grade level books, and then move on up to there. And I wouldn't expose anybody or anything like that, but I kind of always been that, and so that one day I remember this too. There was this teacher. I was with Wrecking Crew, and she was a fan, and a young Caucasian lady, and she came to one of our shows, and she said, "Hey, I have this idea where I wanna do raps, but I wanna put like phonics in it, and I want to teach phonics through rap." I was like, "Wow, you know what? That's a pretty good idea." And so I started working with her on that, and I programmed a few beats, wrote a few rhymes, and she was giving me instructions on like certain, terms and phrases and stuff like that to say. So we started coming up with like a way to use rap in education, and I got into that. And so I started talking to more teachers and meeting up with more teachers and stuff like that. Well, how do you become a teacher? How do you get this and that and third? And so they gave me that information, and I ended up going off and getting a teaching credential for LA Unified, and using that in and using rap and using hip hop in a lot of what I was doing, because what I wanted to do was have the legitimacy of being able to use hip hop in education, but then also have people not say, well, you're not a real educator, you don't, you're just a rapper. No, no, that's not true. I'm actually both. So I did that, and just like I said, I kept going with it, and it just sort of it was something that I naturally loved doing, had a passion for, just as equally as passionate about music and writing and directing and all of that. So that's how I ended up, being an educator, and sort of hip hop kind of brought me into that.
Wow. Okay. And then musically, I know you're still working on a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
What do you want to tell people about that you're working on now?
Well, right now, actually, Lonzo and I were just talking about this the other day. We need to come up with some new Wrecking Crew stuff. But again, it's Wrecking Crew, so it has to have the flavor. But of course, music has evolved, and there are many different iterations. So we'll have some surprises there in terms of how we bring how you sort of blow the dust off of the relics, and then make sure that it's sonically and palpable for today's audience. So, and I work with younger people all the time at LA Film School, LA Recording School. So my ear is there, and of course, like I say, we met at a studio session that was actually both of ours, mine and Chris's, that we were doing for this organization. So we do that. Plus, I'm continuing to work with and mentor a lot of the younger producers and musicians and artists from the various schools, from Cal State Northridge and Santa Monica College, and of course LA Film School, and really I want to really give them sort of like the same shot in the arm that I gave to a Cube or a D.O.C or any of those other guys that sort of came along after us. And you know what is funny, man? I didn't even know this, but a lot of the DJs that started like working with cats like Warren G and DJ Quick and those guys, they would come to us and say, "Man, you know what? If it wasn't for you guys doing what you did, then we wouldn't be doing what we're doing now." And I was like, wow, I had that same conversation with Disco Daddy. If it wasn't for you doing what you did, I wouldn't have been doing what I did. So it's nice to hear and know that not only did we sort of, kick up dust and be a part of that sort of pioneering architectural group, but we also inspired the next generation of MCs and DJs and rappers from everybody from like Quick all the way to Kendrick and YG and all those guys. So I respect them and salute them as well, because believe it or not, a lot of those guys are informed about the history and they do appreciate it. And I think it makes you a better artist when you do understand the culture and when you do understand the evolution of everything and how it came about.
Yeah, I mean, that's very important and very crucial, and that's one of the many reasons why I'm glad we were able to do this interview to, not only shine some light on you, but also explain some of the other things that were going on that don't get as much discussion, which I think are very important.
Yeah, because they're foundational stories. They are canons that have happened, and there are people and artists that have made contributions that do not get the respect that they deserve. That's why I work with the Universal Hip Hop Museum and those guys. And we're putting together a museum for hip hop in the Bronx, the official museum for all of hip hop. And it's made up of of course OGs in the game and scholars and other artists and people from all different generations and whatnot, coming from all different walks of life, to sort of tell the whole story of hip hop, not only in America or the United States, but just in a universal way, because hip hop again started out in the Bronx, as this sort of movement to, hey, put down the guns, everybody, let's party together, let's come together, and pulling these elements together to a worldwide phenomenon. And because it's now that worldwide phenomenon, it is something that has been instrumental in entertaining, informing, enlightening, affecting change, and doing all these different things that we didn't even know were going to happen. And in fact, when people first looked at hip hop, they were like, it's novelty, it'll be here and gone in a couple of years. It's just some kids, kicking up some dust and whatever, but it'll be gone. Here we are 40 something years later, hip hop is still going strong and is the official pop music of our time.
And shows no sign of slowing down.
None whatsoever. None whatsoever.
So there it is. Well, DJ Cli-N-Tel, we really appreciate you coming through the Unique Access. Anything else you want to add before we go?
Nah, man, just thank you and you, Soren, and Unique Access and everybody. And yeah, if anybody wants to get at me, of course, Instagram, it's at DJ_CLI_N_TEL. And, Twitter, I'm not on that too much, but also have a Twitch channel, which is basically the same. It's fun. It's a fun ride. I'm having a ball. Of course, like I said, doing my thing and look for the world-class Wreckin Cru, man, in some town somewhere near you.
Well, there it is.
Hip hop don't stop.
Be sure to check out the History of Gangster Rap by Soren Baker. He's official.
History of Gangster Rap features exclusive interviews with Ice-T, Snoop Dogg, MC Ren, the D.O.C, and dozens of others. The History of Gangster Rap, a definitive look at how Los Angeles changed rap forever.
In Los Angeles, the streets definitely set the tone of the hip-hop music.
At 19, I got a $50,000 car.
My whole angle always was, I'll be street, but I will always tell you the horrors that go along with this life.
It will be penalties and casualties for just wearing the wrong color in somebody's neighborhood.
And once gangster rap made it from the streets to the TV, the genre exploded.
With Fab 5 on Yo MTV back with NWA.
Yo MTV, it just catapulted us from being local heroes to national gangbang rappers.
The History of Gangster Rap discusses it all from 1980 up till today.
It's always gonna be shit happening in the streets. You know what I mean? So it's always gonna be something to talk about.
The History of Gangster Rap in stores now.